Hello and welcome to the For We Are Many podcast. My name is Rob.
And my name's Trisha.
My name's Josh.
And today we have with us the Minister of Culture of the new Afrikan Black Panther Party, Kwame Shakur, to discuss his new book, My Search for Answers, Truth, and Meaning.
Welcome.
I can't say enough how grateful we are that you're coming on to do this.
Yeah, I appreciate y'all having me on. Definitely something that when I talked to you and you told me you had a book reading club, I thought this would definitely be a good idea to come on before your group starts to read the book officially, and
Right.
Open up about it, what they gonna be getting into.
Yeah. You're already doing your book readings. We were hoping to have you on before you started doing that, but hopefully we can get some new people on there. You do those Monday and Thursday nights, right?
Yeah, and it's gonna be from here on out 7 p.m. Eastern time. The exact same link. We're gonna use that for the whole time that we're gonna be doing this, which probably has spanned about 3 months, because all I do is read one chapter and then open it up for discussion.
Yeah, I love that you have the open discussion too. That way if anybody has any questions or wants to ask what you meant in a certain spot, they have the opportunity to ask you directly.
Right.
So that's pretty cool. And we will have the link to the Zoom meeting in the video description when we post this. So, like I said, hopefully that gets you some new faces in the Zoom room. And Thursday you did chapter 1, which I missed the prologue. I was working for that one, but now I found my wireless headphones, so now I can just take those to work and pop it in before I'm out. But yeah, so Monday you'll be going into chapter 2. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, or is there a specific part of the book that you do want to talk about?
I have a couple of things in there that might be interesting, but chapter 2 is and a lot of people might see this book as unique because I go from the prologue starts with me catching the case, my bank robbery case that I caught. And that was just to grab the attention of people. You dig what I'm saying? That a wide breadth of people. Yeah, I wanted to really grab your attention to be like, man, let me see how this plays out. You know what I mean? I ain't never read about somebody did something like this. You know what I mean? And how did he become a revolutionary after living a life like this? You know what I mean? But Assata Shakur's autobiography was very inspirational to me on a lot of levels. And one of the ways they inspired this book is of how I go back. Chapter 1 is my earliest childhood memories and stuff. Then chapter 2 is when I go back to I'm in prison now after you just read about me robbing a bank in the prologue. Then in chapter 3, I go back to my school grade years and stuff, you know what I mean? And then I go back to prison, you know what I mean? And this was a way to have two parallel stories being told at the same time. And it's also, when you go back to the presence, you will see along the way how some of those contradictions even led for me even being sitting in a prison cell, you know what I mean? So I just thought that was very creative of how Assata Shakur wrote her book. And I told myself, whenever I write my autobiography, I'm going to take that same type of dynamic that she brought to it and weave together a story that eventually comes to a singular road of the present. And by the time a person get there, it's been such a page turner, because it's like you're reading two books in one book, kind of, you know what I mean?
Right.
And on one chapter, you get to the next chapter and you want to really get back to the other chapter because you want to see how that last chapter just ended. But then you realize that this new chapter you're reading, you intrigued by on a whole nother level, so you want to keep on reading. So it was kind of just a strategic way to maintain the attention of the audience.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so far, I'm really enjoying that about this book. Which, I mean, I'm like, I don't know, a little bit into chapter 3. I'm not too far into it yet, but I will be picking it back up tonight. Um, but I've been enjoying it so far, and I'm interested to see how the stories come together into the present.
Right.
That makes sense. Like why it jumps kind of, like you said, early childhood memories, and then back to prison. I was wondering if that was kind of like uh, what's the word I'm looking for? I was kind of wondering if that was like, like just to give a little bit about who you were, or like if the story itself started at prison or not. But that answers that. Well, I guess to be fair, chapter 3 kind of answers that question.
Right. Yeah. So chapter 1, chapter 1 starts off, like I said, with my earliest childhood memories, and I started it off in a way to let people understand, like, I'm human just like you. Like, I had a regular upbringing just like you. I think a lot of people look at revolutionaries, and especially the ones, like, when you look at history that stands out to you, we put them so much on a pedestal, but we don't realize because how they even got to be the great leaders that they became. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I think the fact that I'm one of the belief that leaders is not born; they're made by their social conditions. You know, we might have a life where we leaders in other ways, like playing basketball or little groups in your community and stuff like that. But that don't make you necessarily a revolutionary leader. You know what I mean? That's something
Right.
that develops. That's something that comes about through a lot of social experiences that changes your ways of looking at things. Comes about by you taking on the time to self-educate yourself and question
That's
some hard
that's the big
questions.
one.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
hard questions in life and being able to find proper resolutions to them. You know, because some leaders come to all kind of resolutions, but you know, a lot of us look at it like, dang, how do you come to that conclusion right there? So you build a movement based on some idealist conceptions that really came about just in your head that don't reflect reality. You know what I mean?
Right.
So for me, I also wanted people to take out of this book that reality is an important thing. You know what I'm saying? And truth is a real objective material thing. You know, we
Right.
don't create our truths in our minds. Sometimes we find out the world is very different than how we first assumed it was. But then when we come to more information and start to see the bigger picture, and you start to see what is the problem and solution, as a leader, I feel like it's important that you act accordingly and your principles match the end goal that you're trying to work towards. But understanding it's a process. It took a process for me to become who I am today, and that's why, like, as people read through it, they see that some search for answers took 10 years. Some answers are still unfolding because revolutionary organizing is a very dynamic thing that is not, you can't pick up a handbook and say this is the way you go about doing everything, and if you do this you will succeed. You know what I mean? It's also
Well, I think we got something that's pretty close to a handbook.
what's that? State and revolution. Yeah.
Yeah.
But just even that, no, the application of it,
Yeah.
we can see that, like, even when we look at the Chinese and their experiment, or even the Russians and their experiment, not everyone was really a communist. You know what I mean?
Right,
It was a lot of
right.
people that were Chinese nationalists and Russian nationalists and stuff like that, but never really internalized the ideals of Lenin or internalized the scientific method of approach like Mao Zedong explained. So being able to really grasp these abstract concepts and make them concrete in a tangible way where you can deliver it to the people and they can internalize it and make it into a force themselves. That takes a lot of creativity, a lot of being able to. I think Fred Hampton was one of my biggest inspirations because he always talked about people learn best through observation and participation. Sometimes you can't just lecture people. You got to put them in a context where they internalize these ideals by the work they're doing. And then when you start to bring these ideals back to them, they're like, oh, okay, so this is why we're doing what we're doing. This makes sense. You know what I mean?
Right,
So
right.
that takes vision. That takes understanding people, how people internalize information, how people go through those revolutionary transformations in themselves. We don't get there overnight, and so we have to have patience with the people as they develop in that regard.
Agreed. Well, I mean, hell, I can't speak for everybody, obviously, but I totally feel you on that, like, finding answers to questions 10 years later. Because, like, when I really started to question shit was right around the time of Occupy. That's why I went fucking down there, you know? Like, and a lot of those questions didn't get answered for years. Or, you
Right.
know, like listening to, I don't know if you're familiar with Grace Lee Boggs, but she spoke at an Occupy conference in Detroit. And,
Okay.
like, it took me, like, literally, like, 10 years, because it's been, like, 10 years. Some of the things that she said, like, you know, as I'm sitting here pondering other shit, you know, just like, oh, fuck, that's what she meant. You
Right.
know, like, and I mean, it's kind of like shit that I thought that I grasped too, you know,
Right.
like,
Right. Like
and that goes
years
back to what you said
waiting
before
for it.
that about how your social conditions really shape who you are and what
Right.
your beliefs are.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that even goes to, like I was speaking about last night in the book reading, that goes from all the social institutions in society, informs our level of consciousness. You know, and I always like that quote by Karl Marx. He said, "It's not one's consciousness that determines their being; it's their social being that determines their consciousness." And what's that mean in application is like if you was raised in a household that was very, for instance, came up with a lot of religious indoctrination, that's going to be one of the first institutions that start to form your consciousness. You know what I mean? And then if you're put into, like, for instance, a religious school or institution, that's going to deepen that level of awareness, that level of consciousness that you have and how you perceive yourself in relationship to other people in the world in general. And then we have the institutions like the media and public schools that solidifies it in a lot of ways, of our perception of what we think is reality and what we think is life, and how human beings is supposed to what we did determine. This is the key point. What we determine is human nature, you know what I mean, is formed in these institutions, but we don't realize all these institutions is tied to a particular era in the development of the productive forces in society. So basically what I'm saying, depending on the social economic system that we come up in, we don't realize that superstructure of the politics, the laws, the religious institutions, the social institutions, the principles and values of that era is really shaped by how we organize labor to produce and reproduce the necessities of life. This is not something that you immediately grasp when you come in this world and you live life. It just comes to us as normal. You know what I mean? But if we
Yeah.
lived in the age of slavery and stuff, that was a different normal because that social economic system organized people to reproduce the necessities of life in a completely different way than capitalism. You know, so our views of ourselves was reflective of those social relations that existed outside of the productive forces. You know what I'm saying? With outside of the plantation that carried over into the society as a whole. And I use this as a metaphor. It's kind of like the Matrix. You know, when Neo was approached by Morpheus and he said, I give you the option to take this red pill or the blue pill. You know what I mean? Well, political education is that red pill. And when you take that political education, once you start to stare at this social matrix, this social economic matrix, you start to really understand what the matrix is and how it has kept you plugged into this level of consciousness that in a lot of times pits people against each other through racism, through sexism, through national bigotry and xenophobia, gender and phobia, dealing with the LGBTQ issues and stuff like that. But this is one reason, again, why I also wrote this book too, is because I noticed that a lot of leaders in history wrote political discourses, you know, that was very abstract, was needed, very needed, you know what I mean, but went over the head over most of the masses, you know what I mean. So I was thinking of what is a creative way to teach people complex concepts in a deliverable way that it'll be digestible to the average person. You know what I mean? Because if you think about it, a revolutionary movement such as, you know, the new Afrikan Black Panther Party and fighting for scientific socialism and eventually want to get to a communist world without states and national boundaries and stuff like that. Those are complex concepts that is hard to deliver and convey to a population when we wasn't given a proper education in the first place going through these school institutions. So I figured by using my life is like a metaphor for other people and use some of these complex concepts and interweave them into my story in a way, it would have a lot more of those aha moments for people to make transformations in their level of consciousness a lot quicker than I did. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's one of the main goals of my book, is trying to see if I can, if the same type of transformation that I had undergone will make it a lot easier for other people to make some of those same transitions, to see those answer those questions and have the information right there where they can even research. If I named the book in there and I said this is the book that transformed my way of thinking, well, hey, maybe kept that book right there, and it would give you an even deeper insight of what I'm talking about and how I made that transformation. But I tried to make that as a process that people see that I struggle with, and so they see that the struggles that they wrestle with in their own lives is something that we all wrestle with, and nobody becomes a leader overnight. It's something that we go through transformations and qualitative leaps to start to see the bigger picture of things.
Right.
So like that idea of kind of like showing the transformation, was that influenced at all by like Soul on Ice by Eldridge Cleaver?
Oh, that's funny that you say that. Eldridge Cleaver is a complex individual.
To say the least.
To say the least. Like in the beginning, I liked Eldridge Cleaver as far as like his being able to communicate and deliver a powerful, inspirational speech. You know what I mean? But I always had you know, my ways of looking at Eldridge Cleaver that I didn't really agree with some of his outlooks on life. I read his book in prison. I was kind of uh surprised to find out like how he saw women, his relationship with women, and how he uphold misogyny and rape and stuff like that. But at the same time, I do look at his contributions to the original Black Panther Party before it started going down the wrong road. So one thing I would, to answer your question directly, I don't feel like I got any inspiration from Soul on Ice for this book. Any inspiration that came from this book was really if I talk about different books, I say, like I said, Asada Shakur, Malcolm X. Malcolm X played a big influence. I saw Malcolm X's his autobiography is a life of transformation. You know what I mean?
That makes sense.
Him, yeah. And I always saw that was the biggest lesson I took out of Malcolm X is that education never stops. Your transformation and how you look at the world should never become stagnated. Even when you're incorrect, you should own up to those moments in your life where you start to realize that you was actually on the wrong road and trajectory. You know what I mean? And own up to it in such a way where you educate the people so they don't go down that same road as you. So, yep, Malcolm X autobiography had a great influence on me. I would say also George Jackson, the Soledad brothers, had a great influence on me because these are two individuals that came out of prison, and I don't think you should say they were any less capable of leaders than a person uh, that came out of college, you know what I mean, and became a great leader, or became a revolutionary like Franz Fanon, who was a psychiatrist and took his educational background and used that to be give understanding to the revolution over in Algeria and stuff, or Fidel Castro, who was a lawyer, or Ernesto Che Guevara, who was a doctor and transformed that education into a revolutionary education. Those individuals like George Jackson and Malcolm X, they came from a university too. Like they all both said, they came from the University of Solitary Confinement in the penitentiary, you know. And I feel like I came out of that same type of legacy that they came out of. So those probably I would say was the biggest inspirations to this book. Besides Fred Hampton, Fred Hampton is the pinnacle of my what inspired me. And speaking about that, that kind of transition. If y'all want me to read a part in the book that talks about
Okay.
that. So this is in chapter, I want to say 7. No, chapter 6, the shoe, on page 69.
Okay.
This was this part that I'm about to read right here was really that fork in the road that that when I look back in retrospect, this is the time in my life that really put me on the trajectory of where I am now. Never realized that this is where it was going to take me. All the type of people and different cities and states and revolutionaries and all kind of people it would introduce me to. Some of them that I even read about in prison or read documentaries about. But this right here was that turning point in my life that took me on this trajectory. So I'm going to read it again. This is chapter 6, the shoe, page 69. It was around this time that I started really turning to books. Buddy initially piqued my interest while we were in general population together. I had caught him coming back from the general library with a few books in his hand. Somewhat amused, I asked him what he was doing with these books. He said he was educating himself. That's when I learned that he was illiterate before he caught his case. When he was in the county jail, he taught himself how to read and write. Once he got to Wabash, he continued his self-education by reading books in the general library. I was impressed by him teaching himself how to read and write, but I didn't understand why he felt the need to read books about Black history and Black consciousness. To me, I viewed that as becoming institutionalized. The way I viewed life at this juncture was that nobody could tell me anything in a book if they hadn't walked in my shoes literally. All that Black consciousness and Black power shit I viewed as being subjects I had no interest in learning about. I didn't want to learn about our history because what I figured at that time was that we really didn't have any substantial history. I always viewed our history as starting with slavery and ending with the civil rights movement. At least that's what they implied in all the schools that I had attended growing up. Before I go on, I would say Buddy was a friend of mine that I met in prison when I first came down in prison. So that's who I'm referring to when I mentioned Buddy. And me and him became like one of my closest comrades. I'm still close with him to this day. But to go on, it says, this unusual conversation with Buddy ended with him giving me a fictional hood book by Donald Goines. I think the book was Black Gangster. Initially, he tried to give me a Black consciousness book, but I outright rejected that. I told him, bro, I'm not on none of that Black Power Nation of Islam shit, period. I wasn't trying to go to prison and leave drastically different than when I had arrived. I wasn't going to be converting to Islam, changing my name, or wearing afros when I got out. I thought all that shit was for the birds. The only thing I was trying to do was survive prison and make it back to the streets one day. That's all. After I read Donald Goines' book, I developed a thirst for hood books. When I brought that first book back to Buddy and asked for another one, he offered me another Black consciousness book to read. And like the first time he offered me one of those genres of books, I told him I was good and that that wasn't my cup of tea today, tomorrow, or in the next century. Instead of being too forceful, he relented and gave me another hood book. This time he gave me Pimp by Iceberg Slim. After I read that book, I realized that pimping wasn't cool at all. In fact, Iceberg Slim made me look at pimping as one of the worst forms of modern day slavery. Today, I still feel the same. Nevertheless, when I returned that book back to him and he offered me another Black consciousness book, I relented. He told me since I liked all the other books he had given me, why not give this Black consciousness book he was offering a chance too? Only took it because he said he wouldn't force any more on me if I didn't like the one he was giving me. I figured I would read this one book and then afterwards he would stop coming at me with this Black Power nonsense. I looked at the cover of it, Visions for Black Men by Naeem Akbar. To my surprise, I began to read it. I noticed that the author was actually on to something. The premise of the book was to highlight the difference between men and males. Up until this time of my life, I had dismissed the need to read books. I viewed education as only as a passport to getting what society say I needed to get a good job and make a better life for myself. I didn't think anyone could understand my plight without literally walking in my shoes, living in my shoes literally. Now I was seeing that this brother who had never met me actually understood a lot about me from the words in this book. I saw a lot of myself in his illustration of how he defined a male. For most of my life, I thought being a real nigga meant that you had to get your money up, be able to fight, fuck as many women as you could, and have the respect of the streets and your peers. He was showing me that was what males did. They simply lived out their life through the power of their testicles. Being a man or a real nigga as defined by the streets placed the immature world outlook over a mature world outlook that gave preference to one's responsibilities, priorities, and accountability to their community above all else. It meant becoming a well-rounded individual that always strived to better themselves over keeping up with the Joneses. What really stood out to me as I read that book is that a lot of the guys in prison seemed to be males, not men. It didn't matter if they were 18 or 80. Some of them still had a male mentality. And not a true mentality of a well-grounded man. After reading that book, it made me start to look at books and self-education differently. Carter G. Woodson once wrote in The Miseducation of the Negro, philosophers have long conceded, however, that every man has two educators, that which is given to him and the other that which he gives himself. Of the two kinds, the latter is by far the more desirable. Indeed, all that is most worthy in man, he must work out and conquer for himself. It is that which constitutes our real and best nourishment. What we are merely taught seldom nourishes the mind like that which we teach ourselves. By the time I got to the shoe, I was eager to start my self-education. I wanted to understand why the world was so fucked up and unfair. It seemed like my life was being controlled by an unseen force. I just couldn't put a circle around what that force was. I didn't want to simply blame everything on the devil. I figured that he had a hand in it, but I felt there was a tangible, mundane reason as well. I didn't really know where to start, but a friend of mine who was on 1200 range with me helped me in this endeavor. He sent me this Vita Wawa 2 book 11 journal that had 3 speeches by Fred Hampton. Before then, I didn't know anything about Deputy Fred Hampton Sr. I hadn't even heard his name before and really didn't know nothing about the original Black Panther Party. I had always assumed that they were the black version of the Ku Klux Klan. At least that's what a preacher on TV once referred to them as being. When I read the speech he gave in 1969 titled Power Anywhere There's People, I immediately took a strong liking to Fred Hampton. The fact that he was 21 years old when the government had assassinated him, and I was 21 years old myself at the time, I could relate to him. Even though I was only reading his words were having a powerful effect on me. I had been a rebel without a cause for a long time. When I came across Fred Hampton, it felt as if my cause had introduced itself to me through his charisma. I never heard anyone speak like him, not even Malcolm X. At the end of his speech, he said, "We in the Black Panther Party, because our dedication and understanding went into the valley, knowing that the people are in the valley, knowing that our plight is the same plight as the people in the valley, knowing that our enemies are on the mountaintop, to our friends are in the valley, and even though it's nice to be on the mountaintop, we're going back to the valley because we understand that there's work to be done in the valley. And when we get through with this work in the valley, then we're gonna go to the mountaintop. We're going to the mountaintop because there's a motherfucker on the mountaintop that's playing king, and he's been bullshitting us. And we got to go up to the mountaintop not for the purpose of living his lifestyle and living like he lives. We got to go up onto the mountaintop to make this motherfucker understand, goddamn it, that we coming from the valley." I was impressed. I wanted to learn more about this unknown leader no one told me about, as well as the original Black Panther Party he was a part of. I learned in that Vita Wawa 2 journal about the free breakfast programs that the original Black Panther Party had. I learned about the street organizations and how a number of them had worked alongside them. Also discovered that the FBI had pitted other street organizations against the Panthers to disrupt the good work they were doing in the community. I hadn't heard about any of those things in the schools that I had attended growing up. I wonder what else they were hiding from me. I was determined from that day forth to study everything I could. I started realizing there was a whole lot they didn't tell me about during my formative education in school, or should I say, miseducation in those schools.
I like that a lot. Um, it's like that last line, the miseducation in those schools, and well, I was gonna interrupt you actually, but I didn't want to interrupt you, so I didn't. But um, like that being the black version of the KKK is basically all right. I didn't. There we go. Being the black version of the KKK is basically the picture that was painted for all of us.
Yeah.
Through the
Yeah.
media, through fucking schools,
Right.
through I mean any pieces of documentaries you might see about the Panther Party. That's how they're portrayed.
Yeah. Yeah. And coming from a black person that thought the same thing, you know what I mean, just shows you again how like I said, it's our social being that determines our consciousness, you know what I mean. And because we came from the same institutions, generally speaking, in this same society, they all shaped our consciousness uh by us being a part of this social this society, and it shaped us to believe in the propaganda that the government had propagated against the original Black Panther Party. So it's not uncommon to find black people, white people, Latinos, anybody that had the same came to the same conclusions, because we all was dealing with the same society that was shaping our level of consciousness, in this case miseducating us, you know what I mean. So it goes to show you that one of the most primary things is that in order to change the consciousness of a people, you have to change the social institutions that make up their lives. You know what I mean? That's going to be able to inform their consciousness in a more constructive way.
Yeah, Josh, you have any questions? You've been awful quiet over there, bud.
I have a few comments. I really agree with like personally in my life, Malcolm X's autobiography played a big part in how I think, how I see things. And I read that as a kid. You know, once I got older, like you said, it takes years to to get some of those concepts that you read in these books. You know, over the years, I've seen that myself. And also to what you just said, the Black Panther Party, you know, I guess the FBI, they were the ones who propagated all the bad things about it. And up until probably about 4 or 5 years ago, I thought all those things until I really started looking into it, you know, and I guess my first foray into that was Tupac, you know, because I know
Right.
Tupac's mom was
Yeah.
a Panther.
Yeah. Right.
And that's how I finally figured out, you know, these
Right.
guys, they were for the people, you know.
Right. Right. Yeah. And it's funny you say that because Tupac had a big influence on me too. And not only is he a reason for him and Asada Shakur is the reason why I put Shakur for my last name. I don't bring Tupac up in there in my book about that reason, but that's one I could throw in there as a caveat. I talk about Asada Shakur is one of the reasons. But Tupac was just like you. Again, think about this. Our social being within this same social construct, this society, these institutions, they informed us, me and Josh, consciousness to see what Tupac was saying. It was like, man, let me look into the Black Panthers and stuff. Let me give them a try because I remember Tupac said they was the shit, you know what I mean? And I fuck with Tupac, so you know it's the same with me too, though. Like Tupac was another reason why I even gave the Panthers a reading. You know what I mean?
He's precisely why I did too. Like, I grew up with his music, and when I started hearing about Asada and her involvement, I'm like, wait a fucking minute, that's Tupac saying. Let me read up some more on this.
Right, right.
Wait a minute, all this shit I've been told in school is bullshit. Yup.
Right,
right.
right. Yeah, it's funny though. Like all of us come from different backgrounds, different regions, and everything like that. But we had the same type of influence and the same way of looking at this, and then also even the reasons why we started to look into it is the same. You know, like and then and but think about this: what if we had started off life with social institutions that had already prepared us to understand history, to understand
Right.
our real place in history, to understand the struggles that our people struggle with to free us. You know what I mean? If we would have been able to deal with these complex concepts at a younger age, we would have been able to make these transitions a lot quicker and been able to
Mm-hmm.
contribute a lot more, even at this given time in period in history. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
and it seems like, wow, it's a no-brainer, but what is standing in our way? It's the same institutions that lied to us that made us take this long to figure all this out. You know what I mean? That stands in our way. You know what I mean? So I think the more we become conscious of these type of things, then we understand, like at the end of the day, and I talk about this later on in my book, that the capitalist state will never be in our best interest. It will always
Right.
figure out ways to lie, deceive us, and keep us divided. You know what I
Yep.
mean? But it's for us, the people, no matter their ethnicity, no matter their place in the world, their gender, their sex, or whatnot, that we have to understand that we are our own solution. And that's what the main thing I want people to take away from when they read my story is that once I started to realize what the problem is and put a circle around the solution, that's when I stop being criminally minded and being destructive and a force in the community that this government always say they want somebody to stop they want to stop crime, they want to stop this, they want to stop that, but do they truly want to? Because when a person becomes like us, we become even more of a bigger threat in their book because now we can expose the truth.
Mhm.
Right.
Now
Right.
They don't
we
like
can,
that.
yeah, and now we recognize our solidarity and our commitment to liberate the people, the same people that they've been for years keeping divided through white supremacy and sexism and racism and wars of imperialism and fighting our brothers and sisters in different countries because their government's doing the same thing to them. They're lying to
Mhm.
them, miseducating them, and telling them all the American people they're this evil people, and then we're there are government, this government over here, and these institutions saying the same thing about them, but we've been playing like pawns as they've been becoming more wealthy over our blood, sweat, and tears, and all the wars that they pushed us out to be cannon fodder for. You know what I mean? So it's our responsibility to teach each other and educate each other. You know what I mean? They're not gonna do it. Assata Shakur said, we should never, and I'm paraphrasing, we should never think the oppressor would give us a level of education that's going to actually liberate us.
Right.
And she's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's literally the shit they redact from the education system, is anything that can inspire revolutionary thought.
Well, look
Yeah.
at the backlash from conservatives on fucking critical race theory, or as
Right.
most of us call it, history.
History.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And even the stuff that they do tell us about is so watered down. Like Martin Luther King, somebody I struggled with over the years. I had good feelings about some of the stuff, but then at other times I just can't feel like why he thought this way was gonna somehow bring us all together in a kumbaya moment. But then I started to realize when I went to prison and start to read about Martin Luther King, I was like, man, this dude was a lot more militant than they told us about.
Oh yeah,
he's been whitewashed.
Whitewashed, and the fact they got a holiday for him and streets named after you, and even politicians like Barack Obama, and even I think I even heard Donald Trump quote Martin Luther King before. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, but for Trump it was all, like, oh, nonviolence is the answer, like
right. But
sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah.
Right.
But all of these people have co-opted our leaders and watered them down, so it will water down our level of consciousness and what we're supposed to be fighting for today. But Martin Luther King, and this goes back to like the Rainbow Coalition. The Rainbow Coalition was the height of the Black Liberation Movement. No matter how much people want to undermine that legacy, and it's often been written out of history. You find that only in footnotes and stuff like that. But that was actually the greatest thing that came out of the Black Panther Party. You dig what I'm saying? But when you see where that the forerunner of that, before the Black Panther Party started the Second Rainbow Coalition, you got to pay homage to Martin Luther King with the Poor People's Campaign. You know what I mean? Because this was a qualitative leap in his understanding that it's not about civil rights anymore. It's about human rights and class struggle. You know what I'm saying? And this is when he started to criticize capitalism. This is when he started talking about capitalism is a byproduct of militarism. He was a big opponent against Vietnam War. And then he started to realize he started to realize that he might even made mistakes with the integrationist approach to it, because he see that capitalism, what does it mean to integrate into a white supremacist capitalist imperialist system? That means that you just want to be equal with rich white supremacists and have the ability to exploit people just like they're doing. That's oxymoronic.
Yeah. You want to wear the boot instead of having it on your neck.
Right. and so that right there just shows why they even assassinated this man. Because once he got outside of, okay, we're just gonna fight for civil rights and voting rights, but now he's like, nope, I think the system is the problem. Capitalism is the problem. Imperialism is the problem. We need to unite across all these demographics and stuff and push this poor pain. You know what I'm saying? They was like, oh hell no, you got too far out of pocket now.
It's a real threat now.
We got, you too much of a threat.
And you had to find that stuff too.
Yeah, and think about this. You with and hopefully in our newsletter, just to let everybody know, is going to be coming out in the Rainbow Coalition very soon. We'll be posting that to our page. We also got the Second Rainbow Coalition Facebook page, so check us out on there. But one of the articles, I think one of the comrades is going to be putting in there, and this is a professor of history and imperialism and stuff like that. He's going to speak about the Bacon's Rebellion. The
Never
Bacon's
heard of
Rebellion.
it.
Huh?
I said I've never heard of it.
This, put like this, the Second Rainbow Coalition, the Poor People's Army, Poor People's Campaign that Martin Luther King did and what Fred Hampton did with the first Rainbow Coalition, you can't really understand how much of a threat they were until you go back in almost 400 years, back to 1676. Nathaniel Bacon, he led a rebellion. Just to speak about it in a very condensed way, real quick, in summary. He was a part of the aristocracy, but at this time you had black slaves and you had white indentured servants. You know what I'm saying? And it was normal for white people and black people to live together, to even intermarry and stuff like this around this time, because the landowning class, they profited off of both of their labor. You know what I mean? That's all they saw. Lower class white people as labor, and lower class black people as the slave and the indentured service as a way to increase their wealth. You know what I mean? But what Nathaniel Bacon did, he was mad, and his reasons for doing this is not something that we align ourselves behind, but we see the result of what happened, of what he was doing and the implications of it. He united the white indentured servants and the black slaves because he wanted to expand the territories into the native indigenous territories and stuff, where the ones in Jamestown, the governor in Jamestown and all those aristocrats, they didn't want to do that. They wanted to be more conservative at that time. So what he did, he united them, and he started to overthrow that ruling class in Jamestown, using black slaves and white indentured servants united against the elite. You know what I mean? And they actually was successful in ransacking Jamestown, bringing it to its heel and overthrowing that government. The government, Nathaniel ended up dying mysteriously from like a flu or something like that. So they lost their leadership, and the ruling elite end up coming back and repressing that slave revolt and uprising that he led. You know what I'm saying? And from there is where we get white supremacy, because they saw the elite started to realize we have to institute in this society a white supremacist way to keep the black population and white population forever separated. So they gave a lot of concessions to white people at this time. They made them, like, for instance, slave overseers and chasers, and they also gave them different incentives and stuff, where they felt more apart and inclusive into society. And then they relegated the slave trade just to black people. You know, now no longer white people was in the same condition as black people on that plantation. You know what I'm saying? And so these laws start to be passed in all those colonies over there on the East Coast. And this is how white supremacy became institutionalized in this country. So for movements like the Poor People's Campaign and the Second Rainbow Coalition, First Rainbow Coalition, we're doing something that they had tried to prevent from doing ever since 1676. We're uniting black and white people. We're uniting the lower class people of seeing their commonality instead of being pitted against each other. You know what I mean?
Right.
So this has always been a threat, the biggest threat to their system. So anybody that's ever advocated this, Martin Luther King, anybody that advocated this, Fred Hampton, the government quickly felt like they had to eliminate. So with that said, we're under no illusion that that they see us as a threat. They already banned my book already in all Indiana prisons, and this book just came out. You know what I mean? And the reason why they said they banned it, they said because back in 2020, I did a quote unquote gang summit where I brought some of the leaders from the 60s of those gangs, street organizations. I like to call them street organizations with a little respect, because I understand their history and what they was really trying to put together back then. But some of their leaders, like Benny Lee, he was the youngest chief of the Vice Lords back in the days. Ike Taylor, he goes all the way back with Larry Hoover when they was like 8 years old or the 8th grade or something like that. And Melvin Lamb, he was one of the Black Keystone generals. And I brought them to Indianapolis to tell the people in the community that if you represent this stuff right here, it's not about gang banging. It's not about selling dope. It's not about killing people. These same 3 people I just named has been friends ever since the 60s. So why are y'all out here killing yourselves based on colors or neighborhoods or drugs and gangs and stuff like that, when these individuals has always been talking about unity? They had a movement back in the 60s called LSD. A lot of people don't know this, but when Martin Luther King came to Chicago, he used the Laura Stones and Disciples as his security. You know,
Wow.
yeah. He
Dang.
actually lived in the same neighborhood, 15th in Hamlin, which is right over in the heart of the Vice Lord territory. He felt the most safest in the Vice Lord territory because they had protected him. They had institutions over there, like they had their teeny town, they had their clothing stores, they had their little recreational place. Y'all might have seen Martin Luther King playing pool one time in Chicago. Well, that was in the Vice Lord's neighborhood community center. You know
Oh,
what I mean? A
wow.
lot of people don't know
Wow.
that, but this part of the history was written out. You know that about the street organizations working with people like Martin Luther King, and then Fred Hampton. Fred Hampton brought a lot of those streets together. It's depicted in that movie, Judas and the Black Messiah. You know what I mean? But this is the reason why they try to ban my book, because they said, and mind you, this is Indiana Department of Correction. It has nothing to do with what goes on outside of prison. So this had to be people downstate in like the government's offices that told the Department of Corrections commissioner, "Hey, this book right here, we're banning that, and I don't want y'all to allow this in the in our institutions in the prisons." But think about this. I was trying to do the same thing too, in a different context, like what Fred Hampton and Martin Luther King was doing. Bring these street organizations together to start addressing the real problems in the community, because these are the people that's actually in a community that could become the problem or they can become the solution. And
Right.
because we're actually reaching the people that can make a real difference in their community, they was like, "Oh, hell no. We don't want that to happen."
Well, I
They
mean,
don't like
let's be
solidarity.
realistic though. These people are just trying to fucking survive. And I
Mhm.
mean, Bobby Seale talked about that quite a bit in his book, Seize the Time. And he looked at it much the same way. These people can either be the problem or the solution.
Right.
Um, so I think that going back even to the Oakland, like the original chapter, um, I think that they always kind of had that mentality.
Yeah. And you got to take in consideration, I understand it too. Think about Bunchy Carter. Bunchy Carter was the leader of the Southson Street Gang out of California. He brought his whole street organization into the Black Panthers. You got to think about Jose Chacha Jimenez with the Young Lords. They started off as a street organization as well, but then they became political once they started to see what the Black Panther Party was doing, when Jose Chacha met Fred Hampton locked up and stuff like that, and they started to come together. Also, High Thurman, who is one of our elders to this day. You know what I mean? That was a white street organization. They called themselves the Peacemakers and Goodfellas and stuff like that. But they started to realize, like, man, we want to become more politically involved, like how these other organizations are doing. And they transformed their street organization into a political force. That's what their fear is, because street organizations have the capacity, not only because it already has a social base in the community, you know what I'm saying, but it can transform that social base in such a political way where it can connect the people to a larger purpose and movement that can actually address the problems in their community. And that's one of the things that the government always looked at as being a threat, because when the Black Panthers and the Young Lords, Young Patriots actually did things that the government, with all the trillions and millions and billions of dollars they have, couldn't do, and they said made all these campaigns and showed they couldn't actually accomplish, but the Black Panthers could do it, the Brown Berets could do it, the American Indian movement can do it, the White Panthers can do it, the Young Lords, the Young Patriots, but y'all can't do it. Then people start to realize we are our own solution. That's the biggest threat. They don't want us to see ourselves as the solution. As long as we stay dependent on them and we put all of our faith in them, then they can control us. You know what I mean? Like puppeteers. That's what they see as the biggest threat. They see this is about to end once we become conscious and start to unite in solidarity to start really addressing the issues in our community.
Yeah, well said.
Right.
Yeah, that's been another. I just totally lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry.
You find what you got a question for me, Trisha?
I'm just kind of curious to learn more about your experiences there between, the gang life and what you experienced in jail. And are there any highlights you'd like to tell us of, like, those revolutionizing moments? Like, what really fucking made some shit snap?
Right. Uh, it was a couple of situations that made me start to realize, like for instance, I went to Michigan City, which is Indiana State Prison. We all call it Michigan City. That's in northern Indiana. They put me on administrative segregation, which is basically form of segregation, but I can still order commissary and stuff that I would otherwise be able to order in general population. Well, by the time I got to Michigan City, this is like in 2003, all the way up to 2006 that I was on this unit for pretty much. One of the things I was trying to do is apply the stuff I was reading. So at one point, and I talk about it in my book, when I talk about Indiana State Prison or one of those chapters around there, I had a library in my cell. This is before they start banning all the Black Panther books, Malcolm X books, Martin Luther King's book. You can't get that. You know what I mean? A lot of prison, you still can't get anything on Black Panthers, Martin Luther King, Franz Fanon, and stuff like that. But I had a large library, but I started connecting with other people around my same age that was doing the same thing or trying to learn the same thing I was learning and coming to the same position and realizing how much the Black Panther Party really transformed our community. So we started a communal library with everybody write down their names of their books that they had in their cells. And we compiled a whole list amongst a number of individuals on this unit. And then we passed it around to people on this unit and allowed them to select books out of our library. You know what I mean?
So, like the People's Library.
The People's Library. Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. And this was a way to educate, ourselves, to teach ourselves and to realize like this ain't about rehabilitation. So we got to have a space to really rehabilitate the brothers that come in here so they don't go back to society the same way they came in. So that was one of those transformative things that I started to realize. At this time, I started to really connect even more so with the street organizations. And we started to really build a lot of unity. I realized if I could connect with people that had influence or was a leader or a shot caller of their particular organization, they gave me a lot more clout amongst their group. You know what I mean? And I could get them to be influential and trying to get some order amongst the prison population. You know what I mean? And I talk about that in there, how we started organizing different things. Sometimes, and I keep it all the way real in my book, understanding that prison is a violent culture. You know what I mean? And I talk about some of those times that we was trying to get rid of the people in our tiers that was always working with the police. You know what I mean? I even talk about how even the drug dealers in prison, at this particular prison, they had drug rings that the COs were leading. like mafia type of rings and stuff that the COs led. You know what I mean? The captains, the lieutenants. I even talk about when the I want to say the state police raided that prison one time and broke up a lot of these rings and arrested a lot of those officers and stuff like that. But I realized that a lot of stuff that I formerly only saw on TV, I realized if we only way we was gonna get control of the prison population, we had to get rid of those people that work with the pigs. You know what I mean? Get them off our units and start to try to build some real solidarity amongst each other. Because in order to change some of the ways of the prison culture, you got to get rid of the ones. And when I say get rid of them, we was trying to get them off of that unit. Y'all can go to check in, whatever. Sometimes we beat them up, but I was more so the type of person that I wanted to give you an opportunity to leave off this unit because we know that you're working with them, and you can leave peacefully right now, and nothing will happen to you. Because the main thing was I wanted to build solidarity and a new culture within the side of the prison and start to really finally address some of the issues that before people got out of prison. You know what I mean? So that was one of the highlight moments. I felt like I learned a lot. I'm still in touch with some of those people that remember that time, and every time I see them, they be like, "Man, you remember when we was on D East over in Michigan City? Man, we was really coming together," and you know what I mean. So,
Right.
but those are different teaching moments that I took from that experience and took it out here for me to even unite with people like Benny Lee. You know what I mean? Like you can watch a documentary on the Vice Lords. I think that's on Gangland or something like that that Benny Lee is on. Uh, Ike Taylor and Melvin Lamb to connect with these big people that I watched documentaries on in prison and call them my friends, my mentors, and comrades, and have their help of trying to help build some unity. It's one of those lessons I took from prison.
Fuck yeah. That's what's up. That's something that needs to really resonate with people too, because there is such a great opportunity here for
Yeah.
unity with so many people. And it's
Right.
just a matter of reaching them. Oftentimes, that's all that takes is engaging them and talking with them about life experiences that have been radicalizing,
Right.
of like, wait a minute, look at this. We were stronger together. And yeah, you got to weed out motherfuckers, whether they be snitches or Nazis or any other form of
Mm-hmm.
threat against the fucking community, you
Yeah.
know. Like if somebody's a threat by,
Right.
red flag on the playing field. But anybody
Right.
else, take control, you know?
Right. 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 Absolutely. Yeah. And because you brought this up, this is one of the ironies that y'all will find in this book too. I started in prison. There's a lot of white supremacist organizations, but the difference between in prison and out here is that in prison you actually can sometimes work with them when they have a us versus them mentality with the guards. And that's one of the
Right.
ironies that I found. And this goes back to being scientific when you talk about Marxism, Leninism, Maoism and stuff, you know what I mean? And
Talking to
understanding
them about the
social
material conditions.
conditions. Yeah,
Yeah.
social conditions change. Like in
Yeah.
prison, I can work with some of them groups. Outside of here, I'm not working with none of them groups. But I think like the White Panthers can, because those are different social conditions. Whereas some of the ones like High Thurman, I'll use this as an example so you understand where I'm going with this. High Thurman and them were lower class white people that came from the South, from Tennessee, and they migrated to Chicago, uptown.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And they was big on the Confederate flag. Like the Confederate flag symbol was a part of their culture, heritage, and they stuck to it hard. You know what I mean? But one thing that Fred Hampton and Bobby Lee saw in them is that they were lower class white people that didn't realize that at the end of the day, y'all have more in common with the Black Panthers and the Young Lords than y'all can
Yep.
ever do with the state. And they were
Yep.
resisting against the state. You know what I'm saying? They was fighting
Right.
against the state. So these are times where we can look at social contradictions on an individual basis and see that this group has the potential of revolutionary potential versus a real outright fascist neo-Nazi group. You know what I mean? They were
Right.
just a white group that came. Their social being was was nurtured in the same way that everyone is under this white supremacist culture and stuff, and they had those connections to that symbol of Confederacy and stuff. But because the Panthers was applying their dialectic materialism and looking at the fact that these are different from a Nazi group, they're a different strand of even their level of their racism, where they could actually counteract that and turn it into its opposite. You know what I mean? So they was
Right.
able to bring them into the Rainbow Coalition, and eventually they dropped the Confederate flag altogether. Now, this is not to say that that the Proud Boys is going to be like this, because I think that's more so of a Nazi type of ideology. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And some of those groups, that's different. You know what I mean? Some of them people is like they drunk the Kool-Aid and going out our way to try to convince all of these individuals. Sometimes it would just lose. It'd be a waste of time, and it's best we can best serve. Yeah, we best serve our time with connecting with white people in our community that is on the fence, that can identify with this struggle, that's looking at the poverty situation, looking at how the government is oppressing us and stuff like that, and we can win some of them over. You know what I'm saying? But we have to understand those nuances and differences, and those are different social conditions that can be played upon. But I just wanted to bring that up because I thought that was something I learned too in prison, that a lot of white people, even the ones that do have racist upbringings or racist ways of looking at things, not all of them really can be put into that fascist ideological camp.
Right.
You know what I mean?
A
And
lot
they
of
can
them
be
can
one.
be radicalized.
Yeah,
Look at what Daryl Lamont Jenkins is doing with the One People's Project. He's out there doxing Nazis, but the ones who come to him like, "Yes, I'm ready to leave," he helps
yeah,
them leave and unfuck their minds.
right,
Like,
yeah,
like, let's get you the fuck away from this entire cultural fucking influence going on here. Um,
Right.
because that does fucking happen. I know somebody who was raised by a very hard fucking core Nazi family,
yeah,
and when he came into adulthood, he was like, you know what, fuck this shit. I want nothing to do with that,
right, right,
because he, didn't fucking have that in himself to even contemplate, let alone agree with that type of shit, and was like, no, I'm gonna
right,
raise my kids different. And now
right.
he marches with BLM and things like that instead. So, that is possible to yank people the fuck out of that, entire institutionalized way of thinking that leads people towards that fascist shit.
Yeah, yeah, and I get a lot of I even remember a lot of white people used to ask Malcolm X, so what can I do? That right there is one thing I love about High Thurman, because he recognizes the same thing we do. Like, racism is not white like trying to combat white supremacy head on in the white community. That's not the responsibility of the Black community, the Latino community, the
Right.
Chicano community.
Right. That's a white people's problem.
And you got to put it in a way that
Can you hear me?
they'll
Yeah.
yeah, you got to put it in
My
a way that
camera went
they'll
off.
listen to as well.
My camera went off.
I'm sorry. What was that, Josh?
Can
I
y'all
said
still see me?
with with white communities, with people who aren't exactly on your side, you have to put it in ways that they'll understand and that won't scare them, because they're brainwashed to hear certain words and go crazy off hearing those words. And I
Yeah.
Right.
grew up in an area like that with racist people, which, thank God I had an aunt that, she told me about Martin Luther King Young. And, I had the internet, so I didn't turn out like, some of these older generations. So, I
Right.
mean, I guess now it's a little easier for people, especially kids, to not be so caught up in the racist stuff that they're around.
Right.
We're not
Absolutely.
mixing
Hey,
it.
can y'all click your camera on and off and then on again? Because I got a phone call that messed up the
Oh, uh,
mic.
get that to load again.
Okay, yours. Okay, yep.
There you
And
go.
just Rob, click your phone, your camera off and then back on.
Yeah, when you pop back in, I could see you, but
Yeah,
didn't know you
I
could
see you,
see us.
Josh and Trisha now. I don't see Rob still.
Huh. That's
There,
weird.
Rob loaded
You're
back up on
invisible.
the screen.
Yeah, I guess when you get a phone call, it just messes up everything.
Yeah. Damn
But yeah, I
phones.
totally agree. Who was that? Rob or Josh that was just saying that?
That was me. It was Josh.
Yeah, yeah, and I totally agree. And I think like one thing High Thurman and he even talks about it in his book. High Thurman, just think about this. It's easier for people that came up in that lifestyle to be able to relate to somebody else that can understand what how they was brought up, you know what I mean? And be able to tap in and to help them see the errors of their thinking, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
But for some people, just because in this culture it keeps blacks and whites and Chicanos and us divided, uh it's harder for people to really hear what another demographic, ethnic demographic is coming from. But I think it's easier for people like us that has certain upbringings to hear that from their own people, and for them their own people to really help them deal with those contradictions. You know, what I mean, it's just like, for instance, in the street organizations. I don't think a white person coming in a black neighborhood trying to take gang people that was former gang members and make them political. I don't think that's gonna be as well received. You know what I mean? But coming
Hmm.
from another black person in their community that can relate to that, you know what I mean, and speak to them on a level that they can relate to, there is a
I think we lost sound.
yeah, I
Something.
got a loss. Can y'all hear me again?
Yeah.
We can hear you, but we
But
can't see you. Now we can
there,
see
and
you.
now we can
You
see
probably got to hit the camera again.
Oh
Oh,
my
now we
God.
can
you.
hear you.
I heard him.
Yeah,
Do you
and
see me?
Trish and Rob.
Well, I see Kwame's lips moving, but I don't hear anything.
Okay, hit the camera again, Trish. Tell her to turn off our camera and turn it back
There we
on.
go. I can now. I can hear you. Can you see me
Okay, for some reason, I guess only three people can see each other at one time, and the last person that does that is now blacked out.
now? Shit happens.
What if I try changing the view? Do you see everybody now?
Well, I see her box. It's just
Huh.
it's blacked out now. Yeah, I
Let's
think
try that again.
now next time I'm just gonna have to put my phone on do not disturb or something.
Fair enough.
but yeah,
Were you
but
talking
yeah,
about? Oh, I'm sorry.
go ahead.
Oh, were you talking about Hyde's book, Revolutionary Hillbilly?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm actually reading that too, along with your book.
Oh wow, wow. Hey, wait till you get to the back of it when you read the White Panthers what they had, 11-point program. Very, very revolutionary. You know what I mean? Very revolutionary.
It's a
I
page
think you
turner, just like your book.
yeah, yeah, I liked it. Yeah, how was the turned me on to it. I think I read that book in probably about a couple days. I was like, yeah.
Hell yeah. Yeah, which I mean, that being said, you've been talking to High, haven't you, Josh?
Yeah, just a little bit here and there. I think he actually lives near me. I live in North Alabama,
Oh
and
wow.
I believe he lives right, probably like just about 10 minutes down the road from me. But yeah, I really
Oh
relate with his
wow.
story as well because I'm from Eastern Kentucky, So I'm from the
Yeah.
same type of area that he came from
Yeah.
originally. And I had to leave probably for about the same reason he had to leave where he was from, for jobs and for better opportunities, because there wasn't nothing
Yeah.
back home. You can either, work in a grocery store, a gas station, or sell dope. That's about it.
Right. Yeah. He's how far are you from Huntsville?
I live in Huntsville,
Oh,
actually.
well, you right there. You right there. Yeah. Man, I definitely I got your phone number, don't I?
Mine,
Yeah.
I don't think you do, but I can DM it to you.
Okay, yeah, do that. I'll link you up with High. I think he'll love to work with you and stuff. I didn't realize that you was right there. We actually gonna
Didn't
be
either.
yeah. And we actually gonna be down there for the film festival. All the people in the Rainbow Coalition, March 30th to April 3rd. We're gonna be showing a lot of films. We're gonna have we're gonna show the first Rainbow Coalition, Judas and the Black Messiah. Uh, uh, we're gonna have a panel discussion. I'm gonna bring some spoken word artists, some rap artists, a
That's gonna be
painter,
awesome.
and all that stuff there. So it's gonna be a nice little event.
Yeah.
I'll definitely make
Yeah,
it
that
out there.
sounds awesome.
Yeah,
Too bad I'm
yeah.
all
You
the way
might
in
be able to start working with
Arizona.
him directly.
I,
Josh.
Hmm.
Why you reading a person book like him, actually being able to pull up and ain't that something? Ain't that surreal?
Yeah.
That is really wild.
like, do you
Yeah.
see me over here? I'm like, dude, you could take the week off from work and we could drive to fucking over
I
there.
mean, actually, if I can make the PTO happen, I don't know how much I'll
Right?
have by then. But yeah, I
Oh,
mean, if I can take the time off, I'm totally down.
And is that on a weekend? Do you know, Kwame?
uh, I never even because it's a couple months off. I never looked it up,
I'll have to check
but I
You
that
know
said it
it's
out.
was
March
March.
30th to April the 3rd. So
That
yeah, you
is
have
Wednesday through Sunday.
okay. So
Okay.
even if you can't come through the week that weekend, it's still gonna be a lot of stuff going on. Cause yeah, he lists a whole lot of films and stuff. So I don't know.
Okay.
Uh,
That's awesome.
pretty yeah,
Dude,
absolutely.
hopefully my comrades can pull up. We can all meet each other in
Yeah.
person.
No,
Yeah,
they're
right.
all of
Hell
us.
yeah.
fuck yeah.
Is there anything else that you've got going on that you want to promote? Like,
uh
have you had anything going on at the community center or?
oh yeah, so if anyone seeing this, we still trying to get the community center up and running. This is an abandoned building that was abandoned for 17 years that we've been trying to rehab. Like it was totally destroyed and dilapidated, ran down. We've been rehabbing it. We're trying to get the roof and the back of it built up. When that hurricane came over here, it took the roof off of the very back of it. So but yeah, if anyone would like to donate to help the finish and the construction of that, that's watching this show that comes on here, you can send it to Cash App Panther Love, and the P and the L is capitalized to 2005 2005. And I'm the director over the community center, so I'm gonna be responsible of helping develop it all the way together. You know what I mean? So yeah, if you cash app that, it's gonna anything come to that. Just put on there that community center or something like that, and I know that that's where the donation goes to. So I appreciate that. We also, well, let me pitch my book real quick since this is what I came on here to talk about. You can find my book. Uh, you can really reach out to me on Facebook. You can go to Kwame Shakur on Facebook. Find me on there, Minister of Culture for the New African Black Panther Party. I got two Facebook pages. just inbox me. I'll be getting some copies in hopefully next week. So I'll be mailing those copies off. It's called Man's Search for Meaning. Man Search for not Man Search for Meaning. My fault. My Search for Answers, Truth, and Meaning, the Autobiography of Kwame Shakur. And it's $20 for the book. It's like $25 altogether for shipping and handling. I also have the ebook form. That's $8. I can send that to you anytime for the ebook, and all the proceeds I ever get for the ebook, 100% of that goes straight to the community center. That's my contribution to the community center. So, appreciate y'all having me on. Very engaging conversation. I hope a lot of people that's been watching this learned a lot from this. Sorry that I got a couple phone calls, probably messed up the stream a little bit, but
It's all good.
I had a
Yeah,
good
man,
time.
it's all good. I want to thank you again for coming on. I've been enjoying your book so far, and like I said at the beginning of the stream, we'll have the link to the Zoom meeting for your book reading in the description of the video.
Okay.
That is Monday and Thursday at 7 Eastern.
Yep, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Monday, and that'll be every Monday and Thursday for the next about 3 months. Like pretty much leading up to us coming down to Alabama. By the time we come down to Alabama, we'll be just finishing it up.
I'll get to see you too.
Well, what you say?
I said I'll get to see you.
Oh yeah, most
You'll
definitely.
be in my city.
Absolutely.
Hell yeah.
That's exciting, though. Really.
Yeah.
What's taking you guys to Alabama? I mean, I know the film festival, but like, is it something that already goes on there, or is it something you're doing there?
This is was the ideal that Hyde Thurman, his organization NASO, North Alabama School for Organizers, is down there. So he decided to put this event together. So I was like, well, we might as well make this our first national event where all the people in the Rainbow Coalition, at least some of the leadership, we can all meet down there and fellowship and have a good time, learn a lot from each other. We supposed to even have a panel discussion, possibly with a lot of the original Black Panthers and different leaders of the '60s with our generation's second Rainbow Coalition. So you had the first Rainbow Coalition, second Rainbow Coalition, speaking about just the way forward and how we want to build this movement going forward.
I'm curious. I have to ask. Rewind a second. You said North Alabama School for Organizers. There's
Yes.
a fucking school for building revolutionaries.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
If you go to YouTube, Hyde Thurman has a couple. He got a couple of different interviews that he did on there, and I'm glad you brought that up because January the 11th, next week, and I promoted on my Facebook page. He's having a fireside chat with Fury, which is one of the organizations. It's a feminist revolutionary organization that's a part of the Second Rainbow Coalition. He's going to be doing a fireside chat with them, so you can learn about that coalition members of ours. And then 2 weeks after that, I want to say that's and these are on Wednesdays. So if that's on the 11th, then I want to say it's like the 28th. It's like the last Wednesday of January. He's going to be sitting down with the representatives for the Brown Berets. And they're going to be having a fireside chat with Hyde Thurman, so you can learn about that coalition member that's also a part of our Second Rainbow Coalition as well.
Fuck yeah.
That's awesome.
And that's that'll be 7 p.m. Central Time, if I'm not mistaken. But I'll make sure I put that on my Facebook page so you can let your viewers know when that's up. But I would say the only last thing, pretty soon throughout the week, we're always going to have something going on with NASO, North Alabama School for Organizer. You can look up their website, and you can probably put this in there. It's naso.network. That's the website. You can just go click onto the calendar, see what's going on for the week, and more throughout the week. You'll have people on there like Shaka Zulu is going to be on there doing political education January 16th all the way up to March, I want to say 6, every Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern time. So you can always click on there and be educated by some of the people in the movement or some of the professors that's a part of our movement, some of the lawyers. I'm not going to give up any names yet, but we got somebody that's coming on board that everybody's going to be excited about. He's a lawyer that we're going to be bringing into our coalition. You know what I mean? So I think y'all going to be pleasantly surprised, really surprised who this person is and how much he can actually educate us about the 60s and that part of the struggle that he was a part of and still is a part of today. You know what I mean? So, yeah, tune in.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. Of course, I'm going to extend an invite. You can come back whenever you want, honestly. Just let us know when you got something you want to talk about or promote, and, we'll schedule something up. We'd
Sounds
also
good.
like to talk to Chairman Zulu at some point, but I haven't even talked to him on Facebook yet, so I should probably do that first.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can set that up anytime y'all ready for that. I can definitely directly link y'all up, and he actually wanted to come on to speak soon. So whenever y'all ready for him, I can definitely get that set up for y'all as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
That'd be awesome.
Thanks.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that said, I hope y'all keep on doing the same work y'all doing. I think this is a good thing that y'all doing this book reading thing with this group. Hopefully it keeps on growing and growing because this is we gotta be the ones to educate each other. So I salute y'all for that. You know,
we also do our current event streams on Tuesdays, which we kind of things that we've noticed happen throughout the week. We try to dismantle the media narrative and kind of give a more leftist view, I guess, of what's going on, and that's always pretty fun too. Yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to throw that out. Those are on Tuesday nights.
Okay.
Shameless self-promotion, I guess. But those are at 8 Eastern on Tuesday nights. We've been doing that since, they were originally on Wednesdays, and the first time where we got the idea from was January 6th. That's why we did the anniversary stream yesterday.
Right.
And, which, I mean, basically we were all in Zoom, I think it was already, screen sharing and watching the streams, is this fucking seriously happening right now? And then they get in and they're not even I don't even want to call that an insurrection. That shit wasn't an insurrection, man. But no, anyway, talking shit about fucking Trump supporters was pretty much our first stream. So we kind of kept the tradition going. And I don't know, I guess we talked about that in the anniversary stream yesterday, but we've covered a lot of shit over the last year, like the farmers' uprising in India. Man, seeing millions of people storm a fucking government facility with tractors, there's just something empowering about that. You know what I'm saying?
That wasn't even really in the mainstream media either.
No, not at all. We were using live feeds from South China Post. Anyway, I want to thank you again for coming on, though. I've been really enjoying your book so far, and I'm actually probably gonna read it when we're done with this. So,
okay.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, buy it. My Search for Answers, Truth, and Meaning, the autobiography of Kwame Shakur. And that's on
Absolutely.
Amazon as well, right?
Yeah, that's on Amazon. Only thing on Amazon, you got to go to Amazon and put Shakur, comma, Kwame, and then they'll pop up. I guess they ain't got that figured out yet.
That's funny,
But
but okay.
yeah, but you can always buy from me, and
Yeah.
and uh and I always be diligent and get it to you wherever you are.
Yeah, I mean, you
Shipping was
sent our
fabulous.
copies out like the next day, and we had them.
Right.
Well, like I think Josh got his the day before we did, which makes sense because
Okay.
I'm in Arizona. But like the estimated delivery date was like 6 days, and then it was like 3 days, and we all had them.
Yeah,
That's what's up.
Great.
yeah,
Yeah,
definitely get it through Kwame. Don't use Amazon if you don't have, if you don't have to. Definitely get it through
right.
him.
Absolutely.
Shout out Jeff Bezos.
Right.
Right.
Come back
Right.
to the struggle. I'll just make this one the publisher that published my book revolutionary too. So I went through a revolutionary organization. They independent. So yeah, we keeping it all in the struggle as much as possible.
Hell yeah.
That's awesome.
Definitely.
As it
Well,
should be.
it's a pleasure coming on. I know my phone about to die.
Fair enough.
Fair enough.
All right.
But it was a pleasure coming on. Speaking to you, Rob, Trish, and Josh. And I definitely will be back. But I make sure Shaka is gonna be the come on here to speak to y'all so y'all can learn even more so about the new Afrikan Black Panther Party. He's the co-founder of this. Any question y'all want to know about the new Afrikan Black Panther Party and our history, he's the guy to talk to.
Awesome.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Thanks for being here, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, I will see you Monday. That's what I was gonna say.
Oh yeah. On the book, be on the book Monday, 7 p.m.
I'll be
Eastern
there
time.
too.
Yep.
Absolutely, bring all your friends, whatever, because it's gonna get deeper and deeper, and I think it's a lot of people going. As you can see, like I try to really dig deep, and I try to open up the conversation to for us to learn from each other. You know what I mean? I don't
Right,
look
yeah.
at I look at
Exactly. That's how
I'm
we're
a
going to learn.
revolutionary to believe that being a revolutionary is also being humble and recognizing ain't no superstars and celebrities in this. It actually takes us
Right.
collectively to solve this problem. You know what I mean?
Well said.
Absolutely. And learning
Every
from each
fucking one
other
of us.
is so inherent,
Absolutely.
fucking important to this because there's always something left to learn. If you're still breathing, guess what? You should still be learning, especially from each other because we have different experiences and knowledge bases that we can all bring to the table and share of.
Absolutely.
That right there. It's so fucking important. That's why we started doing this stuff because we have such an appreciation for that education right there. You know?
Absolutely.
And the funny thing is like over the time that we've been doing this, we just like realized how much we still had to learn to know nothing at
Right.
all.
Right. Yeah. And this gonna mess you up. I still feel that way. Even as much as I could talk about, I listen to Tom Watts and I'm like, man, I need to read about 1,000 more books.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a lot of wisdom.
Yeah, and every time that he makes a post, it's like, that long and it's like just packed. And every time
Right.
that I read one of his posts, I'll end up having to like, go back and reread it because there's no way that you can like absorb all of that.
at once.
Right. Yeah. Right.
It's almost like reading Marx, like it's super dense.
Right.
Just
Yeah.
like
Like, wait, let me rewind and unpack all this.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's a
Well, I'm gonna let
beautiful
y'all go before my phone die. But
All right. All
pleasure
right.
being on here. And with that said, all power to the people.
fuck yes.
All power to the people.
All power to the people.
All right now. Y'all have a good night.
You
You
too.
too. Thank you.
You do.
I should have had this pulled up already.
You're looking for music, ain't you?
Yeah. Like I said, I should have had that pulled up already, but it's okay.
Yeah, we've had technical difficulties.
There we go. Thank you again for joining us tonight. We will see you on Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern.
Freedom on this campus. There's absolute freedom here. And I think we're all looking for freedom. Here's what I know. Didn't matter when they sold the devil guns. Didn't matter when they played us drugs. Didn't matter when they stole your mother's sons. Now everyone's out of their mind. We don't make mistakes. We have happy accidents. Just don't worry about it. Learn how to use what you